Welcome to Comrades, a weekly podcast devoted to the FX series, The Americans. My name is Scott Malchus. I'm the TV editor for popdose.com, and with me, as always, is Jeff&rsquo, author of the comic books Dead Man's Party. Ooh, sorry, Jeff. And Zeke Girl and the Four Tigers. Woohoo! So glad I wrote that introduction down, because it came out flowing so smoothly.
Yeah, it didn't sound like you were reading it at all.
No, absolutely not. Can you hear the pages turning? There you go. For those of you who listened to our podcast from last week, which was basically an introduction and a review of Season 1, Season 2 began this week, last night. And for those of you listening on... You're not going to listen to it today because it's not going to be up for a couple days.
By the time this gets uploaded, you figure it's, a day or two, so... And people will probably DVR'd it. What's it? DVR plus 3. So yeah, if you haven't watched the show, don't listen to the rest of this episode yet.
Hopefully they didn't DVR at the same time I did, and they got to see the whole show. But we'll get to that later. Yeah,
Scott's got a bone to pick with DirecTV.
I don't want to be one of those guys that Louis C.K. rants about, who's angry at technology. Yes, I appreciate, that we have technology that allows me to record TV shows on a computer chip. That's awesome. I'm not complaining about that. I don't complain about my phone. When my kids complain that the computer's not fast enough, I recall those days when there were no computers. So, that's all fine. But I can say that I'm disappointed with my technology and DirecTV for not programming it correctly. So, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that later, even though I've just gone off on that tangent.
We'll get to that rant later.
Okay, so last night was the season premiere after a great first season, which we talked about. The season premiere was called Comrades, which, as we stated last week, we did not know that the show's season title would be called, the first episode would be called Comrades when we named our show. I was just being, hey, what a cool title, Comrades. It's kind of Russian. Let's do that. We'll be really cool. So
little did we know just how cool we'd be.
Yes, exactly. That last night's episode was written by showrunners Joe Weisberg, who's also the show creator, and Joel Fields, and was directed by Thomas Lamé. I think I'm saying that right. Who is a storied television director. He got most of his acclaim has been from the episodes he directed on ER, and especially The West Wing. So he's surprisingly, I didn't notice many Steadicam shots in last night. I mean, that was kind of like his signature thing in both of those shows, is he used the Steadicam, and they would create those long tracking shots, especially in The West Wing. But this was not that it wasn't visually exciting, but it was just, I don't recall any.
Huh? That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was only one point in the whole show. All the action that happened last night, there was only one point where, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I hate the jumpy cam. I hate when the shaky cam.
Sure.
There was only one point when they did it, and it was when Stan and Gad get out of the car to go see the Colonel. And it was like that one, 2 seconds. There's a shaky cam, follow him, getting out of the car and walking up the walkway. And then it goes steady again.
Yeah, and most Steadicam wouldn't be shaky like that.
No.
Nice and smooth. I don't mind a shaky cam if it's done for an effect, and even though now it's kind of becoming almost a cliched effect where you'll have a steady shots throughout a whole movie, and then all of a sudden it'll be this intense emotional moment, and it'll kind of switch to this kind of shaky cam feel to make you more in the moment.
Yeah.
That feels like that technique. That film technique is almost becoming a cliche in itself, because it's like, wait, why'd you switch this? Oh, this is that intense emotional moment.
Right.
The lovers find out that one's been cheating, or you walk in and find that someone is dead, or something like that.
Right.
Or you walk in on your parents having a 69. But more on that later. Okay, well, Season 2 picks up where Season 1 left off. We had Elizabeth at the end of I don't know if we talked about
a couple months later.
It's months later, that's true. But I don't know how much we talked about this in the last podcast, but the end of Season 1, Elizabeth got shot and was in grave danger. She was gravely injured. I mean,
Right.
she had to, and of course she had to go to some crummy warehouse makeshift operating room where her husband was the nurse.
Right.
And the doctor looked, I mean, if he'd picked up a rusty scalpel, I would have believed it. There was that kind of
Totally.
sterile environment. So she had to recuperate, and they created a lie that she was going off to visit a sick aunt, and that she'd be away for a while, and that would allow Philip to return back to the family while she was recuperating. So we pick up with Elizabeth leaving this cabin in the woods somewhere. I don't think it was really said where it was.
I don't think it was Joss Whedon's cabin in the woods either.
There might have been cameras in it. I don't know. Oh yeah, I never saw that movie, so I shouldn't talk about that. But she leaves. She's leaving. So her friend says, "If you ever need me again," which nowadays, anytime I watch a TV show and you hear a statement like that, I feel like it's an ominous, it's foreshadow. I think because of Lost and other shows of that in that vein, that you dissect every minute aspect of a show. Now, when I watch this show, which is a big puzzle anyway,
right?
I keep feeling like, oh, that's going to come back somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the biggest moment was there's big symbolism in those opening moments, because as Carrie Russell's Elizabeth is driving away from the cabin, what happens, Jeff?
A family of deer run across the road. Actually, they run into the middle of the road and stop.
And it's actually a mother and two deer.
Yes.
And two fawns. And I think that is, having read up from the two creators, which another good interview I posted on the Facebook page today, I think that's the symbolism of what this season is going to be about. It's going to be about parenthood and protecting the children. And I guess, the rest of this episode definitely lays out that theme.
Yeah.
For the upcoming season. So that happens, and she drives away, and then we cut to Philip. It's like a nice little introduction, because it's just the two characters like we did, and it's kind of, I like, it's always tough, I feel like, in a season premiere, pulling viewers back in, immediately into the action, because you almost, there's just a little bit of responsibility on the part of the producers and the showrunners to reintroduce these characters to their audience,
Right.
But this was interesting because they're separate right now, and but it does introduce who these characters are, because, or at least at this point, because it showed Elizabeth leaving, basically she's leaving a KGB safe house, and she realizes how much she misses her children.
Right. And
then you have that. Then we cut to Philip, who's imitating a Charlie Wilson type senator. I guess that's what he's doing, because he's making a deal with some Afghani rebels. And where are they? Are they in Virginia?
Yeah.
Virginia. Yeah. So there's Afghani rebels in Virginia, and they're making a deal well, the deal seems to be setting up some kind of arms deal to help drive out the Soviets who have invaded Afghanistan. And one of the Afghani people at the restaurant, it's an older gentleman, and it looks like his son, and one of them says it's good to have a common enemy, meaning the Soviets. But then Philip kills them both. He just shoots them both immediately, killing them.
Well, the kid pulls out a knife. He goes, after they seal the deal, he's like, here's a knife that I give to you. I killed my first Russian soldier using this knife. And Philip's like, oh, really? And then the kid says, yeah, it was hard at first, but I'm sure it'll get easier, the more I do it. And then he shoots him.
Right, and then he shoots him, and then Philip says, the KGB are everywhere. There's a lot of great lines in So Big Thing.
Yeah.
He kills the older man, but the younger guy is still alive. He attacks Philip, and he says, you Russians have no idea. He's trying to finish his statement, and Philip knocks it. Blam!
Just shoots him between the eyes.
And more importantly in this scene, Philip lost his wig. We got an idea how he keeps those wigs on.
Exactly.
Especially in those scenes with Martha. I don't know how that... Last season, there was a scene where Philip was is cunnilingus a bad word to say on a family program? It's a scientific word.
It is.
He's performing a sexual move on Martha, and I don't know how his wig stayed on, and he was under the covers,
I know.
And he came up.
You saw
the upper air.
Well, you saw the effort it took for this guy to take it off of his head. I mean, that like double-sided tape or whatever's on his head. I don't.
Duct tape. Did they have double-sided tape in the early '80s? I don't know. It's like
that's a good question.
Double-sided masking tape and duct tape and maybe a little super glue. And then as Philip's leaving, he's walking through the kitchen, and we reveal that these are the only people supposedly in the restaurant. But as he's walking through the kitchen, he comes upon a young man, like a teenager.
Like a busboy or a...
Busboy, teenager. And I'm going to assume that he might have been a relative of these guys, because that's...
Right.
I think that's a safe assumption. And he assures that this young man, you're safe. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Well, the kid's cowering in the corner because he's like terrified.
He's and at first we don't see him.
Right.
It was an interesting... I like the camera move. It's like he starts walking, Philip starts walking through the kitchen, and at first you think he's alone. You think, okay, he's out of here. And then the camera just waits until Philip passes the camera, I think, and then you just slow pan over to the right, and there's the kid. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to happen. This is going to end poorly for that kid. And Philip says, no, you'll be fine. And he kills the kid. And you can see in this moment, too, which I liked, is that how the killing is affecting Philip, too. It's not... He's killing that kid, and it has an effect on him.
Right.
It's not like the guys he killed in this, these adults who have made their way in life and have made their own decisions. This is a kid who's, like I said, probably a son or relative of the guys in the restaurant, and he's just working there. He's an innocent.
Right.
And this innocent dies. And maybe that's another theme about this season, is the loss of innocence, which is, we have these storylines with Paige and Henry going on, and maybe that's another theme that's going to run throughout this season. They sort of foreshadowed that at the end of season 1, where Paige starts to kind of suspect that her parents might not be always telling her the truth. So maybe that's another theme that we're going to find out. I don't know.
What
do you think of that, though? You think that's a good theory, Jeff? Back me up here, man.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, cool.
About that scene when he goes walking through and he sees the kid cowering in the corner. And the kid clearly is just like, knows what just went down. And when Philip says, "Don't worry about it, you're okay. It's going to be okay." There's a part of me that's like, "No way, you can't let this kid go." Right. I knew that. He takes a step away and shoots him in the head. So I was caught between a couple of emotions. At first, I was like, "No, you can't let this kid go because he's a witness." And then when he ends up shooting the kid, I was like, holy crap, you shot the kid. Yeah. And then you see the look on Philip's face where he's just kind of got that look like, damn it, like he wishes
I shot the kid.
I wish I hadn't done that, Wish I hadn't had to do that.
Especially the moment at the end of the teaser where he gets in the car and he's flustered.
Yeah.
He's so many other times we've seen him, a cool individual, get in the car, drive, finish the mission. But this one affected him.
Yeah.
And I think that, maybe, Henry is, and that's another thing in this episode, is Henry has a birthday, and that is, that's significant. He's starting to see his family in the people that he is killing, basically. Yeah. Which comes up further in the show as well. So that's the end of the teaser. We have the great opening theme. There's some cool stuff. We need, just a note that Susan Meisner plays Sandra, and Allison Wright are now in the main cast, which you see in the opening credits, as is the actress that plays Nina.
Annette Mahandru.
Annette, yes. I'm just going to look it up. I'm sorry, Annette. They're all main cast members now, which is great. So that, to me, that's significant because it means that main cast members can get knocked off at any point in a TV series. We've seen it all the time. But at least it gives me the feeling that these characters are going to be in play for the whole season and be more important to the storylines than just kind of background characters.
Yeah.
Not that they were background characters last season, but you know what I mean. I think you know what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, then write me a letter, write me a thing on Facebook, and I'll be able to type up a dissertation for you. Anyway, we're back in Virginia, the Washington, D.C. area. Elizabeth returns home, and it's Henry's birthday.
I like that overhead shot as they were coming back into their community. I liked how they kind of just saw that,
Yeah.
You just see what kind of community. It's just a normal, it's like somewhere we grew up, just a normal everyday existence.
Are you saying that there could have been KGB agents in North Olmsted, Ohio? Possible.
Dude, there were a couple kids in our high school. I'd have put some money on it. Easy.
That's funny. You never know, man. There are a couple teachers, too.
That's true.
Well, there's some shady characters. Not that I can name names because we don't want to get sued at Southgate Media.
Not yet, anyway.
So, excuse me, it's Henry's birthday. Elizabeth comes home, and they have this great big party for him. It's really cool. And it seems that Elizabeth and Philip are going to put this marriage thing, make it for real, that they really missed each other and that they do love each other. And we see on the flip side of that, there's Stan and Sandra, and they are on the rocks, so to speak. Stan makes a comment, it's great she's back, still believing, the story that she went out to watch for the sick aunt. Stan has pretty much given up any suspicion that his neighbors could be the KGB agents that he's searching for.
Right.
And there's part of me that still doesn't buy that. I still feel like Stan, his suspicions in the pilot episode, that should be in the back of his mind just a little bit. It
should be, but it's that cognitive dissonance that it's like Martha with Clark. While she's blinded by her love, he's blinded by the fact that, hey, I see these guys every day. They don't have accents.
Right. Right.
They hang out, they drink beer. Hey, their marriage goes on the rocks just like mine does. I mean, what KGB agents? And later on when he's in the office with Gad and he's looking at the picture, the sketch of the man and the wife and the man and the woman, and he's, you see him kind of looking at it, and it's almost like you can almost just see in his brain where he's running through people that he knows, and he hits Philip and Elizabeth and just goes over them and goes on to the next ones.
That's a good point. Thank you for saying that. It's a great point because, I think that they're talking about Martha and her marriage to Clark, and I was reading this current interview with Weisberg that I posted from I think it's on the Daily Beast, but he says that that's based on reality, that there were KGB agents that actually married secretaries and people in the high government areas, and these women had no idea. And even when their husbands were being arrested and hauled off to jail, they still couldn't believe that. So that's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. So okay, so we were talking about Henry's birthday, and the most important part about this whole sequence was Henry didn't want the telescope that his parents wanted him, but he wanted the most awesome game system that you could get in the early 80s. That's right. He didn't want an Atari. He wanted a freaking Intellivision, man.
Did you have that?
No.
I did, and it rocked.
I had two buddies whose names Tom and Bob that you may have known. They were in 7th grade with me, and I hung out with these guys all through when we went to Chestnut High School. And Chestnut. Chestnut High School. Not high school.
No. What are you talking about?
High school. Boy.
Woo. Chestnut Elementary.
Chestnut Elementary, where they shipped us off for 7th grade. Oh, you were at that school, so you knew Tom and Bob. You should have. But we would go over to Tom's house, and he had a television. So, and that was the year I spent any chance I could. I was like, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to ride 4 miles over to another guy's house." I'm like, "Okay, I'll be back by dinner." Back in those days when you did that with your kids. And we played Intellivision all the time. The football was awesome. Yeah, that's what I liked the best. And the controllers were groovy. I like those controllers. They were cool.
With the keypad on top and the little disc on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, and television was cool. And I respect Henry for wanting that instead of the Atari.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. And
but then remember, what was it? ColecoVision came out and made Intellivision
that was like by the end of
86, maybe.
That was by the end of 7th grade. You're right. That was because Tom and Bob got ColecoVision. Yeah. And I remember playing that Smurfs game endlessly.
Yeah.
You remember that game, man?
Yep.
Yeah, good time.
Memories. There's a couple memory moments in this episode.
Oh yeah, this has good stuff, man. I love watching this show because they're accurate. I think that when I hear the little things that they throw in there, I'm like, oh, these guys are just like us.
Yeah,
they're like kind of those guys. I mean, that they mentioned Rod Stewart later, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love that song. Woo, yeah. And of course, Billy Squire in season 1. Henry is going upstairs to use his telescope, and Mom and Dad decide they're going to go on a date. And poor Henry's like, what?
It's my birthday all day.
And they're like, well, and they, man, are they crappy parents. Well, Dad wants to spend some time with Mom, too. And, yeah.
And then they give a smooch, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, Henry's like, ooh.
How's that again?
And the steamy kiss looks real, though. That's for sure.
It did, but then when they broke away, the look that she kind of gives him, it was kind of harsh, and it's like she didn't. The thing about this episode is that while they get closer as the episode goes on, and of course, circumstances that we'll talk about bring them closer together. It's almost like just because they both came back into the house and they had this party, they weren't an item all of a sudden. There was still some of that ice there, and you saw a little bit in that look that she gives him after the kiss.
Yeah, but I just had a thought. I wonder if, this may be really breachy, but what if she's thinking, hey, I don't want to get all steamy thinking about you because in about 30 minutes, I'm going to be wearing a blonde wig and having a threesome with the Lockheed employee.
Well,
which is what happens.
Which is what happens. Well, what's funny is that, and this was the first time I noted it, and it comes up a couple times throughout the rest of the episode, is that there's this nice family moment, right? They gave a kid, and what I liked about giving Henry a telescope, and he's just kind of like. He's like, oh, Philip says, that telescope's 10 times more powerful than the other one you've got. And Henry says, oh, yeah, great. And he doesn't just like mope about it. They're like, well, that wasn't resounding, that wasn't a ringing endorsement. And then his sister Paige says, well, he wanted it in television. I like that I like that family dynamic that they had going. That it feels like a real family.
Yes, you're right.
And every time they have this nice moment, though, in this episode, the job gets in the way. So, yeah, we're going out on date night. And at first I wanted to believe that they were really going out on date night.
I didn't believe it for a second.
But
whenever they say they're going out, I'm like, yeah, they're going out to do some KGB action, maybe. But it wasn't just KGB action they were getting. They were getting some three-way action.
It was a little menage a KGB action.
Menage a KGB action with Elizabeth jumping right back in the action, literally. And then that was the shocking part because she's in there. We've seen her, like especially in the pilot, she's uses sex as a weapon, and then comes in this other woman who gets into the act and kisses her scars.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, this is provocative, and that was my first was like, wait a minute, they have partners. Yeah, there are other. Oh, I guess we never assumed. We've never seen them work with other KGB agents before. Right. We've seen them with their handler. We've seen them with Claudia, and getting kidnapped. But we've never seen them, work in tandem with one or two people before.
Right.
And that's what this episode is about. And Elizabeth and this other woman who will learn her name is Leigh Anne. They are getting it on with this guy whose name is Roy. He's a Lockheed employee, and all of a sudden doors smashes open, and here's Philip and this other guy whose name we find out is Emmet, and they are impersonating Air Force police, and they basically want to set up Roy, and they want to get all of his passwords and all of his safe codes and get it off him, and so that they can sneak into Lockheed because Lockheed is doing stuff for DoD.
And at the time, actually, Lockheed Skunk Works, which was based out at that time, was based out in your area, your neck of the woods, out in Burbank.
They're still out here. They're in Pasadena.
They're in Palmdale now. Oh
god. I love Palmdale. Sorry.
Well, what's interesting is their old place at Burbank. Basically, all the buildings got knocked down to build a parking lot, but apparently they got one building still left that is used for digital film post production and some sound editing. But anyway, Lockheed Skunk Works, which helped create the SR-71 back in the 60s. If
what is the SR-71?
It's a super cool spy plane.
Awesome.
But they were working on at that time. They were working on our F-117 stealth fighter.
Is that what's going to become the stealth bomber type plane? Is that similar?
The first iteration that we had was basically a ground attack aircraft called the Nighthawk, and Lockheed got the contract in the late 70s, and they were building it in the 80s. And I actually think its first battle wasn't until like Panama. But then
what year was that?
89.
89.
So
just put a picture of it up on the after now that you've given this great history lesson.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
It was just cool, and I was just wondering if that's what what the big deal was.
I think it has to be, because you're getting information about warfare, and we're at war with Russia, so that to me is Cold War, but it's still war, and that's what they're building up weapons in case of a war. So this is the next level of weapon, the next generation of weapons, which is a stealth fighter.
But this scene with the hapless Roy here, when they come in, it wasn't like they come in their Air Force, supposedly Air Force security, and they come in and they're like, Roy, so you're basically, it was, Roy, you're getting it on with two chicks. Has that ever happened to you before?
Yeah, poor Roy.
Ever? And he's like, no. And they're like, don't you think there's something a little bit weird about that?
Poor Roy.
Well, yeah. Okay, well, you might have been compromised. So here's what we're going to do. You need to give us all the codes to your safe and stuff at work, and we're going to give you new codes that you're going to evolve, every couple months as we give you the codes. Oh, okay. I mean, it was genius. It was a beautiful...
Yeah, playing the poor guy's ego and self-esteem.
But yeah.
It's like, dude was having the time of his life. I mean, he's like, this is the best day ever. Holy crap. I can't believe it. Then all of a sudden it ends.
Yeah.
And
then I'm being mocked.
Oh, yeah. Poor Roy.
Roy, you're not as hot as you think you are.
So we cut from Roy, and we cut to a shot of the best sitcom ever. One of my top 5 sitcoms ever. And you know why? Because I'm a music junkie, and I loved FM radio, even though WKRP was an AM radio station. That show, I can't believe that show hasn't been made into into a movie, because there's a movie there about a 1970s radio station about to get the plug pulled.
You and I should write that movie.
Well, I don't think that they haven't tried. They just, but that show was awesome. I love that show. Howard Hessman as Dr. Johnny Fever. Tim Reed as Venus Flytrap.
Lonnie Anderson. As the blonde.
Yeah, as the blonde. As Jennifer. I think her name was Jennifer. They had good, that show forever couldn't come out on DVD because they couldn't get the music clearance. They used they used real music, the real songs of the times, and then when it came time for DVD rights and everything, they couldn't get and I think it finally came out on DVD, but it doesn't have the same music. So.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but they did have one of the best episodes ever. One of the most timely. They did an episode. I don't know if you remember where there was a Who concert in Cincinnati which had general admission. And some fans, I think it was 3, maybe, don't quote me on that, got crushed to death at this Who concert. And, at the time, nobody knew that it was happening. It was just so massive, people crowding the stage, people getting pressed down. And they did an episode about that, which was very powerful because, the people who run the station go to the concert, and then the day after the concert, the owner of the station was, Mr. Carlson. God, I remember everything about this show. He's like, that was so great. He's not a rock and roll guy. That was so fun. It was so wonderful. And then he learns that these people died, and it was devastating. That was a great episode. A great episode was the turkey drop episode. And my favorite episode of all time is that a religious group, a Jerry Falwell type of guy, comes into the radio station and tells them that they shouldn't be playing certain songs because they are anti-Christian. And Mr. Carlson sits across the seat from this guy, and he quotes John Lennon's "Imagine," and the born again evangelicist says, "Well, you can't play that song because it says that there's no heaven. And Mr. Carlson says, no, it says imagine there's no heaven. It's a song about hope and peace. And then he says, we're not going to follow your playlist. We're going to do our own playlist, and you can just leave now. And it's a great show. I love that show. Wow. So that's what
that might have been one of your greatest digressions yet in all the podcasts we've done.
Paige and Henry and their babysitter are watching WKRP in Cincinnati. And Paige gets up to get a drink or something, and her suspicions are deepening, and she decides to go back into the garage and do some exploring.
Basement.
And, that was a garage, I thought.
Was it? I thought she went down to the basement.
They don't have a basement.
Yeah, they do. It's where she did the laundry. It was the basement. She went down to go do the laundry.
Oh, is that? I always thought that was a garage.
Yep. You watch the show, right?
Hey, shut up, man. That door, they never said that door. I thought that was a freaking garage.
No, it's the basement because later on when oh, you didn't see it because it's the last 15 minutes. And later on...
Don't tell me yet. I want to be surprised. I want to sit here in surprise as you tell me what happens. So Paige goes into the basement. Boy, am I red-faced now. I guess that there are...
He is, folks, because I'm seeing him on Skype. He's red-faced.
Dang it. She goes into my notes say garage. I'm going to get all confused. No, I'm just kidding. She goes and checks her mom's luggage. And when she goes to see mom's luggage, she's going through it looking for something that's suspicious. And Henry scares the crap out of her for the first time in this episode. There's several times during this episode that Henry scares her. It's great. He's being a good little brother. He catches her off guard. And she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm washing mom's clothes. You know? And she starts... Paige is learning how to lie.
Yeah.
Which is it is a teenage rite of passage, but there's also something perhaps that she's inherited, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll come back. So Paige is doing that. So then we cut back to Phil and Elizabeth with Emmet and Leigh Anne hanging out with their KGB buddies. And
well, this was a funny scene because it's the two girls had been quote unquote arrested. I'm using air quotes. No one can see me, but I'm doing air quotes around arrested.
And a fine job. He's a very good mime quoter.
I lost my train of thought. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. How's that?
So they get pulled out of the room and basically sent to the when Roy gets Phillip and Emmet show up. They bring the two girls out of the room and Emmet yells through the door, shouts out the door, don't anybody don't arrest them until they get interrogated or talked to by somebody downtown. And then the camera goes outside the room. You see, well, he's not talking to anybody. It's just the girls standing there. And then they go sprinting off. And now we see where they went. They're hanging out on the front of their car, just telling stories. And then the guys show up, and Emmet gets out of the car, goes over, kisses Leigh Anne, and it was just weird. It's like, you guys are KGB agents, and then they start talking about family, and they ask about the son is going to Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, this was the only moment where it was kind of funky to me. The only moment in the episode, because it's like one of those. What I love about this show is that everything is like so natural. The dialogue is just so naturally written, so that we don't know who Emmet and Leigh Anne are until their names just come up naturally in conversation.
Right.
It's not like they go, "Oh, hi, Emmet. It's good to," or "Hi, Leigh Anne." They don't do that. It's like they talk like you and I get on a phone and we talk. I don't go, "Hello, Jeff. How are you?" "Oh, fine, Scott. How are you?" You don't talk like that. That's not. And this was the only moment where I felt that it's kind of pulled me out just a little bit. And I know it's me being hypercritical. I'm sorry, but the fact that they then went into this conversation about their kids, like the two women had supposedly been talking about the husbands and what are you going to do? You're going to go back and live with them? How are you feeling? And then I bring up the kids. I'm like, well, that's the conversation that would have been brought up, before the mission even. Right. It was one of those conversations. And I know they had to put that in there to introduce the fact that Emmet and Leigh Anne have kids. But it just felt kind of like that piece of the puzzle didn't quite fit for me in that moment, because it was just like, oh, we have to give this information now. And she's like, oh, how are your kids? Oh, my kids are fine. And then they give us all that information. I'm sorry, I'm criticizing the show writers.
No, I mean, it's legit. I just thought what I liked about it was just again, there's that dichotomy of family and job,
Right.
and there's,
Right.
it was weird, not weird in a good way, just to see that you guys just came off a mission. Not to mention the fact that these are two girls. You guys were just butt naked with a guy, a stranger, and your husband's come over, and it's.
Well, it is the late 70s, early 80s. The swinging period was still going on, man. So you never know. They may have been swingers.
Well, maybe.
Nah. That was an era. That was the era, man.
I think it's just a job.
Okay. It's just a job.
You could go take your mind into the red light district. I'm going to keep it on the straight and narrow.
Red light district, it was the suburbs, baby. It was key parties. What are you talking about? You walk in, throw your key in a hat, pick up the keys, and go home with whoever they are.
Wow.
Didn't you ever see the ice storm?
Oh, I thought you were speaking from experience.
What? No. Yeah, my parents.
Anybody who knew Scott's dad is the band
director
at our high school, you would find that visual pretty funny.
Oh my God! If he ever hears this, he's gonna. What are you talking about me that way for, Dad?
Mr. Malchus, I love you. You've always been a favorite of mine, so it's all love that I'm putting out.
All right, now I'm a little red faced again. That just came out. Anyway, nothing. There's a line in there. Nothing prepares you for growing up. That I think that Emmet says. It is a sweet scene because it shows that these two couples are parents, are families, and again, it's the major theme of this episode. And I think of the season is family and what this job does to the family. Key point that we learn in this episode, in this moment, is that Claudia is still in the United States.
Yeah. Claudia sends her regards.
Claudia is still around, so maybe Margot Martindale will take a break from CBS and come on over to FX for a show.
Right. Well, she will, because we saw scenes from...
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
I did not. I didn't see that. Okay?
Thanks,
Will you stop
DirecTV.
rubbing it in? I'm spitting all over my computer monitor.
Well, I saw it, and yes, we do see scenes of Claudia later on in the
nice.
season.
In the season or next episode?
No, in the season.
They say coming up this season on The Americans.
Yeah,
Is that it?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Sounds just like that, right?
That line that yes, exactly. That line you just said, nothing prepares you for kids growing up, and then it's like ... here. And then it kind of flips to Philip. You see a look on Philip's face where it's like, yeah, we're Russians, and yeah, it's just one of those things where you just had this moment talking about your kids are going to college, and oh yeah, nothing prepares you for growing up here. That's like yanking you back to remind you that you're foreigners in this country.
Yep. That scene ends with Emmet and Leigh Anne. Hey, we're going to be at the county fair or the amusement park tomorrow. Why don't we just all be there at the same time, and we'll just say, hey, I see your kids, you see my kids, and it'll be this touching moment.
Right.
And that's really sweet. And then we cut back to home, and Paige is in bed, and she goes to wake up Henry, and this is probably... Wow.
We've seen some awkward things having done this.
I wrote a note here that Paige will be scarred for life.
Oh my God.
This is the type of thing that will scar a child for life, okay? So Paige, in the end of season 1, Paige went down to the room to check on her mom because she had a nightmare. She opens the door, and mom is not there. The bed is made up, and she's like, oh my God, mom's not here. So she realizes that her mom's maybe been lying to her. So this time, she walks down the room, and you're kind of anticipating that she's going to open that door, and either they won't be there, which is a possibility, or B, they'll be in bed. They'll be sleeping, and it'll just be nice. Never in my life did I expect to see... It's one thing you walk in your parents and dad's on top of mom under the covers, okay? And it's like, whoa, dad's attacking mom, that whole cliche. It's another thing to walk in and your parents are lying horizontally on the bed performing a 69 on top of the covers. And
yes,
you never want to see your dad naked. You never want to see your mom in that kind of... Poor Paige is... that girl, she can't. That's not even something you can go, hey, I walked to my parents doing it last night. You can't go and say, hey, I walked to my parents practicing the Kama Sutra last night. You know?
But then the next morning she goes down to breakfast and she's sitting there. She's clearly like, jarred from last night. And Henry's yapping about something, and Philip's watching his daughter, and she looks over and Carrie Russell's putting this piece of bacon in her mouth, and chopping down and. And then she's just like, ugh, and Philip looks over like,
she's going, that noise.
Philip looks over and he sees what Carrie Russell's doing. He's just like, you kind of get the look on, he gets the look on his face like, Jesus.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's that. There's no amount of brain bleach that can wipe that out.
She's gonna be in therapy. Well, no, she'll be in therapy talking about her parents, and then it'll come out that they're KGB agents.
Right.
Then they had mom and dad have a conversation about trusting each other, and we can't just walk you through a locked door. She leaves for school. Henry leaves for school, and Philip says that key line. Do we know if this is the first time she's checked on us? And that's another theme and a key thing that's going to happen, I think, throughout this whole season. And they're going to be suspicious of their daughter, and suspicious of Ben.
And again, it's just not another, that was a family bonding moment, and, an ABC after school special moment where like, daughter walked in on us. And again, you just can't have a family moment without it going.
How does that conversation go? Paige, sometimes mommy and daddy love each other.
When a man loves a woman.
But sometimes when they love each other, it's just not enough. You have to get experimental. I seriously, Paige cannot tell anybody about this.
No.
That poor girl can't go to her best friend and say, oh my God, I saw my dad's butt crack. My mom's face was buried in his groin.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh. Another fine moment in Comrades history. And it's only been one episode.
Yep. Not even a full episode yet.
69, dude! Bill and Ted for you. Okay, now we cut to the FBI. We get to see Frank for the first time, which we haven't seen. Richard Thomas, who is one of my favorite characters on the show, and he's a little angry. He's everything in the last season kind of just fell apart, and he's a little ticked about that. And he seems to have lost some of his power in the government.
Yeah.
You can sense that, and Stan keeps looking at this board that they have up, which has the pictures of Phillip and Elizabeth in drawing form, and the colonel, that colonel dude, and what we learn is that Nina has basically led Stan to believe that the couple the FBI is chasing have disappeared. The woman died, and the man was shipped out of the States. And Frank just says to Stan, dude, we just have to wait for our next break. And Stan says, that colonel, man, I don't trust that colonel that says that this guy is a liar. I don't trust him. So that is an indication. That's where Stan's going to go. He's going to start. I think he's going to go in that direction. And then Sanford, who's the guy who was the mole. I guess he was a mole. I don't know. He's a double agent. I don't know. He was giving information to Philip and Elizabeth. He shows up. He's the guy who turned over and said, I want $500,000, and I'll give you all the information I have. And he turns up, and he's angry because he hasn't gotten his money yet. Where's my money? And this is another moment where I liked how, when in the writing, Sanford shows up. We're not sure who I couldn't remember his name.
Right. But
they found a natural way to just slip it in there. And he goes, you screwed up, Sanford. You told us you were going to give us information. It didn't happen. It's just that one time that they use his name naturally as sentence. Like, I like that. I like when it's just assume that the viewers have been watching. I know that there are going to be people who are joining in after hearing all the hype that might try and watch it starting in season 2, which doesn't make sense, but they just keep going. It's like, look, we've got this story has been going, and just join in on us, just follow along with us as the writers, and you'll be satisfied. And so I like that. So Sanford's angry. He's like, you didn't do your part, Sanford, and they're angry, and Sanford feels betrayed because everything I said to you was the truth. And there's something in the way he says that everything was real, everything was the truth. Stan still believes him.
Yeah.
And And then what we learned, now this was huge to me. This was a big holy crap moment because last season we saw that Martha put this pen in, which was a bugged pen inside Frank's office so that stuff could be recorded. What I didn't realize is that she is the one carrying the receiver, recording the stuff that's going on in that office.
Yep.
That's insanity.
She's making a mixtape of conversations in Gad's office.
Yeah, we're gonna go from Morrissey to the latest latest conversation, Sanford and the Colonel. Anyway, it sounds like a TV sitcom. Sanford and the Colonel.
Yeah. Hey, what was with that Dalek thing in the hallway bringing files?
What was that?
That was wild.
It was like it was a little robot cart out of Doctor Who comes driving down. And I guess that was...
It must be real, but that was wild.
That was pretty cool. And
then once we get done with the whole Sanford thing, then we get a cut to
Stan in a videotape room
where they're talking about movies that have been pirated on VCR. Boy, there's a throwback.
VHS VCR tape pirates, and I was like, "What are they doing? That's crazy." He's like, "What's this one about?" And it's Mad Max. He goes, "Oh, it's about these motorcycle guys." And I'm like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" And then the guy goes, whoever this videotape guy is like, "Oh, she'll like this one. Show her this," and it's the French lieutenant's wife, which then I realized, which was so smart because he takes that tape and he's going to watch it with Nina.
Well, what's the guy say to him? He says, "It's boring as hell, but your wife will cry. It'll make your wife cry."
She'll make her cry, yeah. And so he's watching with Nina. I was like, "Oh, that's so smart," because he can't take Nina to the movies.
Right.
So, I'll just bring the pirated movies to her.
Yeah.
And there's this is one of those great moments where I don't know if this was intentional or not, but they pulled a quote from the French lieutenant's woman, where it's Meryl Streep, and in character she says, "I'm hardly a woman anymore. I am the French lieutenant's whore." That is the quote that they highlight in that moment, and Nina's watching that, and that hits home to her. And even though she's doubled agent out, or she's like betraying Stan now, she still feels something for him.
Right.
I think, or maybe she's just playing him.
But she brought up a good point. Is she said, why is she a whore? If she's in love with the guy, how does that make her a whore? Like that's her emotion. That's how she is, which was a valid point. But then I like how she kind of spins it. She's like, why are we watching this? Why did you have me watch this? You think it was going to make me cry? Like I wrote my notes. I was like, "Oh, poor Stan. Guy just can't win." He was like,
Stan started off as such a strong guy, and now he's slowly devolving. They're using him, and they're going to turn him. I think he's going to turn, and then he's going to go crazy. He's going to go.
Really? You think they'll turn him? I don't.
I think she could turn him.
Here's the
especially if I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Especially if things go really terrible with his wife, and things just go farther south with his wife, and he falls deeper in love with Nina, they might be able to turn him. Well,
I'm going to jump forward to scene to talk about Nina for a second, because this scene after we come back from commercial, there's a scene that we'll talk about, and then it's Nina in the office with her boss. And they're talking about information that they can, what can they give to Stan? What can they feed Stan that? And her boss is like, "Well, we'll give him some kind of information." And she's like, "It can't be empty calories." And he's, it's got to be something of substance. And Nina's surprisingly into this role, like about being a spy. Then when they go out into the room, when they go out into the room and they see the young, this young kid who's the young guy, actually.
Oleg.
Who he's jamming to Rod Stewart's Passion. Yeah. And, you can just tell that he's like this young, cocky new member of the KGB. And she just looks at him like, "Don't you think he's a little," she tells her boss, "Don't you think he's a little young for this stuff?" And I was like, holy cow, she's like hardcore. This isn't a girl who's like, "Oh, I just want to go back to the homeland," and I'm just an innocent caught in the... No, this chick's hardcore, man.
Yeah. She's hardcore.
So...
And I like that the guy was listening to Passion, because it's a great song. Oh, Jesus.
All right, so we'll back up to the scene before that, which we come back from commercial and
we're at the amusement park. We're at and Elizabeth and Philip and the kids are at the amusement park, and they're there to see their friends, and that's a big setup. It's a big setup. It's a big set piece with this amusement park and everything. And then we cut to Oleg, and he's the head of Line X, which is information and stuff like that.
But that scene, they go to the park and they go to see each other, but they don't go like normal people. It's not like your family and my family go to this park and we meet up and hey, let's have our kids.
No, they have to.
They each stay to their own side.
Right. Well, because they can't acknowledge that they know each other.
No,
they can't.
No, exactly.
Because it could compromise them.
Exactly. But again, it's just the weird world you live in when you're a spy like this. And when they come walking, when Leigh Anne and Emmet and their two kids come walking past Philip and Elizabeth, Leigh Anne looks over. She looks over at them, and the look on her face and the way she looks at the fan. I mean, an entire conversation just happened on her, her face, without any words. It was a really cool moment. I really liked that. Yeah, no, that was great. It was because that was the only way to do it in pre-Facebook days. You couldn't see the pictures of the kids. You just had to go, and that was a cool moment. That was nice, and that's set in motion what would happen later in the episode, because then we cut to the whole thing with Oleg, who's this dude with no socks, loafers, listening to his Walkman with his feet propped on his desk, and mouthing the words to Rod Stewart, and then we go to Frank and Stan, who have come to Colonel Renholt's house. Colonel Renholt is the dude that was Sanford had set up with. He's basically a Russian spy, right? Yeah.
And this is a guy Stan doesn't trust. He thinks that Stan and it's interesting because that whole scene plays out like Frank and Stan go to the Colonel's house. It's a big murder scene, and what we find out is that. Supposedly Sanford had come calling. He was all crazy, and the Colonel killed him. He shot him, and even though the Colonel is talking about he was crazy, he showed up, and did you have the gun? I was like, I got the gun as soon as I saw him pull in. Stan's expression, Noah Emmerich's expression to that whole sequence is like, this guy is full of crap.
Right.
He is lying to us. He's lying to us, and I do not trust him. And at first, early in the episode, Frank was like, you got to let it go, man. He's a colonel, he's got clearance. Nobody's gonna believe you. This guy is, Sanford is an idiot who's got DUIs and child payments, and he's
gambler.
He's a gambler. Nobody believes a word he says, and this guy is a decorated colonel, right? And when they bring Sanford's body out, they reveal that Sanford has been shot twice in the head. And who I said, Frank? Was it Frank or Stan who says you'd think You'd think one in the head would have been enough.
Yeah.
And Frank says, or he agrees, and it's like Frank now is starting to kind of be swayed by Stan's argument that something's up with this colonel.
Yeah.
And so that was a cool moment, because it's like, all right, I liked it, but because obviously they need someone to chase.
Right.
They need to have someone to chase. They had someone in the first season. Now they need the trail, and their trail's gone cold. This might start to warm it up again.
Yeah,
and that's cool because I like that aspect of the story. I don't want it just to be about the KGB agents as the heroes, because there's a interesting comment I read. It may have been in the article I read today, or it may have been in another one. But anyway, Weisberg and Fields said, "Well, we don't view Elizabeth and Philip as anti-heroes. They are heroes in their own regard. I mean, they're Russian heroes, so to speak. So they're portrayed that way. I mean, we have sympathy for them. We kind of root for them because they're heroic, even though they're, our enemy as Americans, right? But I also like this, and that's cool. I like that the show is able to make you root for them, but you're also in a way rooting for Stan and Frank and the FBI because they're heroes too. And so it's like interesting. There's no real enemy here. The real enemies are like eternal, and like Claudia was an enemy. That was an enemy. I think it was less about, to me it was almost like Heat, where in that movie Heat you've got De Niro and Pacino, and they're one's chasing the other, and one's really the bad guy, but you're with him enough that you understand him. And the same with Pacino, so that it's not about who catches. It's about it's like a cat and mouse thing, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So that's the fun of it,
right?
And you're not rooting for one or the other. You're just trying to see how this puzzle is going to play out. That was a long tangent. Sorry.
Yeah.
But then we come back to the amusement park, and Emmet has pulled Phil aside and said, we're supposed to have a drop, and I think we've been compromised. There's a guy walking through the park, and that guy's going to come back. He has to come back because the guy that they do the drop with is John Carroll Lynch, who anybody who watched Drew Carey, all Cleveland fans will know him, the guy who played, I think, Drew Carey's brother, but anybody who watched the movie Zodiac will know him as the Zodiac Killer. I mean, he's a well-known character actor, and so he doesn't have a line of dialogue, at least not in the part that I saw.
Right.
So he's got to come back. You don't cast someone like that, is in a role to just walk across and make a drop, unless he volunteers. But he got his name in the opening credits too. So, so that guy's coming back. So something. This drop is made, and what they do is, Emmet says you have to use Henry as a decoy. And Philip is livid. We do not use our kids. And I love the way he said that. He was like ready to get in a fight, and Emmett's like, dude, we're all in danger. You know, if I go down, my kids are going down, and my family are going down, You got to help me out here, Take the drop, bring it to our hotel room, it'll all be gone, and then we're out of here, And,
well, he also raised the ante too, because it wasn't just this guy's looking for this a guy in a blue cap and an 11-year-old. There's that, but then it was like, okay, then you got to bring it back to my hotel room and do this, and you might have to take out the guys, the guys that are watching.
Now, who are the guys that are following the drop guy? Who are those guys? I was confused by that.
I didn't understand it either, because if this guy was just by himself, he's got two guys that are just watching him. I don't know.
I was a little confused by that, and I admit it was 12:30 a.m., so I could have been.
I just wonder if maybe this is like a heavy roller, like a CEO type or something.
That's Joe Weisberg to answer your.
Yeah, maybe. Hold on a second.
All right,
we're back.
Where were we? Oh, so all right. So this drop gets set up and it goes south, and we know that it goes south because they go to make the drop off the exchange at the hotel, and the hotel room doors open.
Phillip and Elizabeth.
Phillip and Elizabeth go to this hotel. They ditch their kids again. Man, world's worst parents sometimes.
Yeah.
Go to this hotel to whatever they got. Of course, and they still have now too.
Yeah, they got a package on the brush. The brush
with the Zodiac guy, which so that's what we could call him, Zodiac Killer, until they give us a real name. And they come into the room, and Emmet and Leigh Anne are dead, and so is their daughter.
Yep,
she's been killed as well, and it's horrifying because what I really liked about what this episode did is, like, even though we've never seen Phillip and Elizabeth interaction with any other couples besides their neighbors, besides Stan and Sandra, they were able to really make you believe that these people knew each other well, so that when they're all slaughtered, that look of devastation was real. Yeah, and that's a credit to the actors as well. They did a great job. So.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to see all three of them. And I think Amelia, the daughter, her body's laying on top of her mother. Like,
yeah,
the father's shot in the head, and he's laying on the bed, and then these two bodies are laying on top of each other.
Yeah. Now I don't know where the son was, because this is where my DVR stopped recording. So the last image that I saw was Philip says to Elizabeth, Paige and Henry. Elizabeth leaves to get the heck out of Dodge to go find their kids. And now I leave, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jeff Marsick. He's going to give you the play-by-play of what happened, and I have not seen this part, so I'm just going to sit in rapt attention while he describes it. And if I say "holy crap" a few times,
well, I had texted Scott after he had told me that he missed it. I was like, this is a rough 15 minutes to miss. So Philip immediately goes and gets a little handkerchief and looks around the room real quick, goes into a little closet, or in the closet, opens it up, and there's a briefcase. Opens the briefcase, kind of does a quick search around, and he finds this little notepad with some numbers, some digits written on it, and wipes everything down, closes it all up, walks out of the room. As he's walking down the hallway, the son is walking the opposite direction, heading towards the room. He's got his bathing suit on, a towel around his neck.
Because the son
said, hey, when they were leaving the park, he said,
I want to go.
Right. So he's coming back from the pool. Well, they come by, they kind of, just casually look at each other like two people in a hallway do. There's no recognition, of course, except for, Philip. And Philip gets to the exit stairway, and he looks back, and he sees the kid just walking down, padding down to his room, gets to the room, and as soon as he opens the door to go in the room, Philip basically leaps into the stairwell. And as he's going down the stairs, you hear the kid screaming. And he, the kid's name, what was the kid's name? Jared. Jared falls out of the room, and Jared falls out of the room, and he's screaming, and it's like chaos. It was like horrifying to see that. And we cut to the carnival where Elizabeth is frantically looking for Paige. She can't find her. And you begin to wonder, like, she finds Henry, but she can't find Paige. Eventually finds Paige. Paige is over at the face painting thing, getting her face painted up the exact same way that Amelia from the other family had the butterfly on half of her face.
Right. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so Philip comes up. He's like, hey, come on, we got to go. It's getting late, and kind of hustles everybody out of the park.
And is that the end of the act? Is that the commercial break?
Yeah, so that was the end of that act.
So you don't see the Zodiac guy anymore?
No.
Poor Carol Lynch is just the Zodiac guy. Sorry.
So
then what happens when we come back from commercial?
So we come back from commercial, and we're in the basement.
I'm so angry I missed that.
We're in the basement, not the garage. And how we know we're in the basement...
Because the washing machine's there?
Well, no. Besides that, is because not only can you see the rafters over his head, but when she's... when Elizabeth, she locks the door, she looks through the window, locks the door. Downstairs in the basement, you see Philip looking up through the ceiling because he's, hearing these noises, so he looks up. The package was a bottle of Bayer aspirin, pops the cap, tweezers out the cotton, and shakes out the pills, and inside is a piece of paper with a drawing on it, some kind of schematic. And then there's another rolled up piece of paper with a bunch of codes. So he takes those.
Say what those codes are?
Well, the codes, I think, were like the intelligence, the routine surveillance or something. There was a term that he uses because he goes upstairs. Elizabeth has locked all the windows and made sure that the house is secure because they don't know. The whole thing is like, holy crap, are we being targeted? Like somebody had to know about them to hit them. Right. So she said, well, what was the package? And he's just like, well, was this drawing and, routine surveillance that wasn't anything. So, he's like, all right, I've got to go. We need to find out if the FBI is behind this. So he's like, I got to go, I got to go out. And she's like, well,
see the wife.
What's that?
You got to go see the wife.
Yes, exactly.
The other wife.
So, and she says, well, who would do a thing like this? And he says, well, the list is like really long. It could have been, he rattled off a couple people and she's heading upstairs and he's like, I'll be back. And she says, I know. And he goes off. And then, we cut to Stan's house with his wife is sitting there watching TV. She's watching Leo Biscaglia, excuse me, the Love Doctor from the 80s, which is just everybody needs to, spread a little love. And so while she's folding laundry, Stan comes in. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm supposed to... I don't feel like driving back down to Alexandria, so, I figured I would just, come here. And he's kind of roots around the kitchen he's like, what are you watching? She's like, oh, I'm watching Leo Biscaglia. He's the love doctor. And he preaches
Like how we
love.
said that in unison.
Yeah.
Love, doctor.
Stan makes a comment like, "Oh, it looks like the only thing that he's promoting is donations into his own pocket." And she's like, "Well, it's actually for PBS." And you see, there's just like this disconnect going on between the two of them. They're just not in sync with each other. Another 80s.
Well, could it be because he's sleeping with a Russian spy?
Maybe, but hold on a second. Because
okay, sorry.
No, because actually, there's a little 80s thing here where he goes into the refrigerator and she's like, do you want me to, do you want something? She's like, I can heat up one of those French bread pizzas in the freezer. French bread? Yeah, I mean, I lived on those things.
See, I thought you were going to say she was going to cook up some steakums. Which
steakums.
Steakums. There's some Geno's pizza rolls.
Oh, my gosh. Whatever happened to French bread pizza? I mean, that
they still have it, dude.
Is it still out there?
Yeah. You just don't buy your kids the right kind of food, man.
Apparently not. Anybody who's from Cleveland here, hold on, this isn't my digression. Anybody who's from Cleveland here, yesterday I'm out here in Connecticut and I'm in a Stop and Shop out here, and I texted Scott. I was all excited because in Connecticut, overhead in the store's stereo, radio, whatever, Michael Stanley Band's My Town is playing.
MSB, baby.
Man, I had heard that in like 2 decades. So anyway, Stan's just like, nah, I don't need anything. I think he gets a beer and.
That's all you're gonna say. That's your digression. You're gonna go from Steakums to Michael Stanley Band's My Town. You have to explain who they are.
Well,
sorry.
That was a shout out for.
I'm sorry.
Ohio people. No,
Jeff is squirming. Jeff is like he's under interrogation here. He's like, what you're no, you see, it was my town, see, and I wasn't there to shop. I mean, I was shopping, but I wasn't stealing anything, officer. I don't know how those
Scott, who's Michael Stanley Band? Who's Michael Stanley Band?
They were a local
favorite. 2 sentences or less.
Michael Stanley Band were Cleveland natives who had minor success throughout the country. Their biggest hits were probably "He Can't Love You," which featured Clarence Clemons on sax, "Lover," which featured Clarence Clemons on sax, and "My Town," which was then My Town was kind of bastardized for every city across the nation. They had versions like "This town is." Oh, I'm singing. Well, my town, Cleveland, and then they do St. Louis, and I think it was just a Midwest band. Sorry. And they were huge in Cleveland. Everybody loved them, and I was like, all right. There's kind of Bryan Adams meets Bruce Springsteen, a little bit of John Mellencamp. Now I listen to them like, oh yeah, they're pretty good. But I like them.
You're over your snottiness, man.
I know. Well, you know how you are when you're a kid. You go, telescope. I wanted a television.
All right, so. Stan's wife, and she's clearly moved by what Leo Biscaglia has been saying on the show, and she says something to Stan. Leo says that if we don't embrace, if we don't try to hug others or reach out and try to love others, then we're just going to be left standing alone. And Stan's look on his face is like, the hell does that mean? And then she leans forward, she gives him a big hug. And, Stan's like, holy crap, is this? And, they embrace, and then she breaks off, and then, beforehand.
Don't tell me they had a threesome.
Well, maybe. Hold on a second, because when he first came in, she was like, well, I wasn't expecting you to be here. I wasn't planning on you being here. I'm going out to a movie with Trish and somebody else, going out, to see a couple friends. After she gives him a hug, she gets the laundry, and then she walks away, and she's about to leave the kitchen. She goes, hey, you know what? Why don't you come with us? And Stan thinks about it for a second, and he's like, okay. So
they're going to a key party.
What movie do they go see?
I don't know, because I didn't see the rest of it.
The French Lieutenant's Woman, exactly.
Are you kidding me?
That's right. They go to the theater.
That is so good. That is awesome.
So if you didn't get enough Meryl Streep the first time, beginning of the episode, you got it at the end.
Sweet. Speaking of Meryl Streep, I was watching Doubt before I started watching this episode of Americans. So I got
wow. You think it's cool? You think it's linked? Think there's a? correlation?
Well, no, I was watching Down because of my fascination with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh.
They were watching French Lieutenant's Woman because it was intricately woven into the fabric of their story. So, by the way, by mentioning Philip Seymour Hoffman, I owe like a quarter to Dick Gruner every time
Why?
I've been obsessed with that guy since he passed away, man. I don't know why. His death affected me. I don't know. I was very devastated by his death. More so than Harold Ramis, which I don't understand, because Harold Ramis was like an idol of mine in the 80s.
I know.
Seriously, Harold Ramis, I looked at Harold Ramis like, oh yeah, big hair, big glasses, that's me.
Yeah, I know. I texted you when he passed away. I was like, oh, too bad he passed away. And I got this text back like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I know.
That's it?
Because I've been mourning since February 2nd. I've been this, yeah.
Oh, you've just been on perpetual mourn. Okay.
Well, I can't help it. Sorry.
I
was watching Doubt.
All right. Well, Stan's at the movie theater with his wife, and they're watching French Lieutenant's Woman. And then we actually cut back to the house, and Elizabeth is looking out the window, and we hear this voiceover of Philip, and Philip is. It almost sounds like he's there in the room with her, where he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I can't remember if I don't know if I can do this job anymore, but that's what makes this job so hard, and it's almost really difficult to pull off. And then they cut over, and it's him laying in bed with Martha. Or Martha comes over to him as he's laying in bed. He's like, oh, it's just been like a really hard day for me. And Martha comes over and, she lays down next to him and she strokes his chest and she says, just relax. You're home now. And the episode ends with a shot of Elizabeth sitting on the edge of her bed, all by herself, clearly. She's sitting on the edge of the bed and she's just like looking down the hallway. And then the camera just does this pull back down the hallway. And that's how it ends.
Dang it!
It was cool.
Well, I set it up to. Oh no, I can't record it because they're not showing repeats of this until. Well, never mind.
Man, I hope they are, because if I erased it, see, my wife loves the show too.
Yeah.
And if I erased it, see, I watched it and she hasn't, and if I erased it, I'm gonna be, on the couch because.
Yeah.
Because I've done that before.
What relationship do you guys have, man?
Hell hath no fury like a 9th grade language arts teacher when one of her shows gets erased. Putting that out there.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that kind of sums up this week's episode, and I guess that's a good place for us to kind of bring the first official podcast to a close, since we've been rambling for over an hour. God, we've been talking a long time. I hope people don't get bored by this. I did not see the previews for next week, but
there were previews. For next week.
It's just come. That's right. They said it's coming up this season.
Yeah, which annoys
that guy's
me.
Got that voice.
I don't
coming up this season.
I don't want to know the season. Just tease me for
But they want to tease you. They want to just tickle you a little bit, Jeff.
Oh, the big tease that came from that is when they show Claudia in there. So Grandma will be back.
Grandma will be back, and she's a great. They need a new handler, so I'm wondering who the new handler is going to be.
I don't know, but the big thing is that there's this mystery: who's hunting the KGB agents?
Yeah, I think that's a great mystery, and it's great because it's also the family's in danger, and Paige and Henry, and we've come to love Paige and Henry. It's just interesting because their characters weren't featured so predominantly in the first season, but you like them. I like them. They're good actors, and they're sweet characters. So
yeah.
They're just good kids, I like it.
They're really good actors too. I mean, you and I watch a ton of shows, and there's always I always give child actors a little bit of a break because they're kids, but the kids in the show are spot on. They're really good. They're really good.
That's right. All right. Well, I guess we will wrap things up for the week. We normally do random crew members, but we've gone on for too long, and I have to run, and Jeff has to go cook some pork chops. And
I do.
And so first of all, I'm going to say that Scott Malchus is an employee of Cartoon Network of the Turner Broadcasting System, and the viewpoints and opinions expressed here on Comrades podcast are his own and do not represent those of his parent company. I think that's about the right thing I said. They will come down on me.
That sounds good.
Okay. If you'd like to learn more about Jeff's comic books, you can go to our Facebook page. He's going to post the links to Dead Man's Party and Z-Girl, and you can go and check out those comic books. Dead Man's Party is almost coming to a close. He's got that wrapping up, and hopefully soon after he does the last issue, we'll have a graphic novel for you all to buy too.
That's right.
Awesome. So with that, I would like to bid everyone adieu. I just need to say that the music that we feature on this podcast, our theme music, so to speak, is a song called Target Practice. It's by the group XP8, which is 2 people, a guy named Dave Sampin and a drummer named Sean Flynn. Dave and Sean both co-wrote and produced the music. And if you want to hear more of their driving hard rock music, you can go to their Bandcamp page, which is xpa.bandcamp.com. They have a full album there. You can sample all the tracks. Good stuff. Dave has been really cool about us letting us use the music and letting me find a way to carry on the memory of my brother-in-law Sean, who passed away a couple years ago. So that's all I got to say for this week. Jeff, what do you got to say?
That's all I got to say, too. If you want to check out more great podcasts, go to southgatemediagroup.com.
Right.
Check out the wide range of podcasts there. I also, if you're a Walking Dead fan, check out the Biters podcast that I do with my artist on Z-Girl, Kirk Manley.
Awesome. And also, if you're listening to this on Poptos, please continue to check out the Poptos material that's here. And monkeys.
And rate us. And monkeys.
Yeah.
And rate us if you download us on iTunes. Give
go
us
to
stars
iTunes.
and
Yes. Please rate us if you go to iTunes. Not rate RATE.
Yeah, no raids.
Raids and no monkeys. Okay.
On that note,
We'll see you next week.
bye.